Hello to everybody. As a brief introduction about me, my name is Paola Guzmán, and I'm an early stage researcher within the PROTECT project. I'm currently performing my research at the University of Santiago de Compostela in Spain. Today, I'm going to present the research with which I have participated in the FoodMC Congress. I'm going to explain the content of the presentation so you know what to expect. I will start with the problem definition, then I will move to the way in which the problem was addressed in this research, and how the proposal of a methodology help us with it. In the third section, I will explain how and what was the process to build the methodology. And lastly, I will close the presentation with describing the future of this work. And well, to begin with, dairy products demand is expected to keep increasing in the next years, as you can see in the figure in the left. This increment is due to population growth, also countries' income growth, and change in the dietary patterns. On the one hand, the dairy sector relies on large amount of natural resources, for example, fresh water and arable land, but also other inputs, such as energy, crops, and other materials. All these represent large greenhouse gas emissions and other environmental impacts related to water use, water pollution, and land use change. On the other hand, rise temperature, rainfall modification, sea level rise, and forest fires incidents due to climate change, all these stressors will impact the dairy sector, having environmental consequences and affecting its performance. And this might influence its environmental sustainability. Since climate change represents a challenge for the dairy sector, there is a need to model and quantify the environmental impact of this sector on their climate change conditions in order to find hotspots to improve in its environmental sustainability. But how to do it? Well, first, it is relevant to mention that the LCA, or Life Cycle Assessment, is a potential tool to quantify the environmental impact of the dairy sector. So the integration of LCA model plus climate change models and also emission scenarios is a promising option to deal with this. So in order to address this previously problem, producing and creating a methodology with the combination of tools is the proposal from this present research. This methodology will allow us to model the biophysical impact of climate change on the dairy sector, but also to quantify the environmental impact of the dairy sector, both in the present, which will be our baseline, and also in the future, for example, in a timeline of 2050. But how to build this methodology? That's the question. First, we need to know what tools, or in other words, what models or methods are available, and which of them are we going to use. Also, we need to define what impacts of climate change are we going to model and how. To do so, a literature review was carried out in order to find the most suitable tools and also define the scope and also to define the scope and boundaries of the research. And well, in this slide, I will present step by step how the proposed methodology was built In this first part of the methodology, that I will explain how the impact of climate change on the dairy sector is proposed to be evaluated. And well, first, literature review on the impacts of climate change on the dairy sector was done. This helped to define the geographical regions since the impacts of climate change are expected to vary across the regions of the world. For example, some regions will be more prone to droughts and heat waves, but other regions will be more susceptible to storms and floods. Once the regions are defined, a literature review on climate change models and emission scenarios was done. Among the wide variety of models and scenarios found, the IPCC and the national models are the most promising according to the literature. Also together with the RCP scenarios proposed same by the IPCC. All these will allow us to define the temporary boundary, but also define what are the specific impacts of climate change in the dairy sector. Generally speaking, the dairy farm stage was identified as the most susceptible due to the presence of heat stress in cows, and this might lead to a decline in the milk yield. But also other impacts were found. For example, impacts on crop yields and water availability on farm. Once the impacts are estimated, are defined and estimated, either with previous projections from literature already done or from on projections. This depends in the cases where the data is not available. The impact of climate change on the dairy sector can be quantified. And well, the next part that I'm going to explain of the methodology talks about the quantification of the environmental impact of the dairy sector in the present, and then I'm going to explain how we propose to address the future. First, as I mentioned it before previously, LCA is a worldwide user tool that quantifies the environmental impacts of this sector. There are many standards that help in the process. And well, since this project has a sector perspective, and after literature review on LCAs, and hybrid approach was identified as the most adequate. By choosing this, this will help to cover the environmental impact of all the sector. Well, hybrid means that there is a combination of product LCA, but also input and output LCA. So with this hybrid approach, the life cycle inventory data needs to be built after it, but we need to pay special attention in double counting because double counting is a common incident when performing these types of LCAs. Once this is done, the environmental impact of the sector can be quantified in the present time. So this will be our baseline. However, we are interested also in the performing of the dairy sector in the climate change conditions. So the next steps that I will explain are proposed. Literature review on other future climate change challenge was performed. As you can see them in the blue box in the bottom left corner. This will work as an input to define the scenarios that the dairy sector might face. And lastly, by combining the previous results from the impact of climate change and the definition of the scenarios, it is possible to model the future environmental impact of this sector. Then we would compare the baseline picture that we got with the future picture that we got at the end of this methodology. Well, the next step is to apply and prove this proposed methodology. After it, another variable is expected to be integrated. Well, in general, since climate change will result in favorable conditions for foodborne organism growth, the integration of the risk assessment methodology might help us to address this issue. So once this is integrated, the risk assessment methodology, the next step is to validate the integrated methodology in a study case at the industry. And finally, there is a need to look for some gaps in order to cover them, and so then we can enhance the method. Once done this, there is need for a revalidation step. Thank you for your attention, and if you have further questions or comments, please don't hesitate to contact me. Thank you.